Morning, Scott Tyndall.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. It's a pleasure to have a experienced podcaster and radio show host with me this morning.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Right. At your last AI conference, did you go for fun or for business?
So I went to a conference in Arizona, and conferences are almost never fun. You're trying to get the most out of them you can. Now, I did have a good time while I was out there. But I was out there learning about a company called HealWell AI.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they take medical data and run it through their LLM, which is a large language model.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got two main goals right now. The first is to be able to help doctors identify and treat diseases before they would normally get diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is to use the data to match people up to clinical trials. So right now, a typical clinical trial may cost a pharmaceutical company $70,000 per patient to be able to find them and get them enrolled. The idea here is that we can use this data to find the patients, match the patient up to the pharma company for substantially less.
Mm-hmm. How'd you find out about the company to begin with?
I was invited out there by a group that had actually listened to the radio show.
Really?
Yeah, so pretty interesting.
Behind the Blockchain.
Yeah, Beyond the Blockchain.
Beyond.
Yeah.
How long has Beyond the Blockchain been together?
We've been going live for a little over 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot has changed, obviously, in the world of crypto and AI over 2 years. So it's been an interesting roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. At the conference, did you come across anything besides the company that piqued your interest or that you didn't already know?
Yeah, I met a lot of really interesting people, and that is part of what I like doing. I believe everything in life is relational, not transactional, as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to meet new people, learn from them, learn what they do, find ways that we can all interact together, I think is really powerful.
How do you implement the relational aspect in business?
I think it's playing the long game. You just got to, you can't, people can tell when you're just trying to sell them a product or churn and burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so my experience has been if I just be a good friend, a good listener, a good person that people want to be around, then when there comes a time for business to happen, hopefully they'll think of you. And if they don't, it was still the right thing to be a kind person anyway, right?
It's a win-win.
So, yeah, it's win-win.
So what is your business that they'll come back to? What do you offer?
So I am an attorney by trade. So I practice law. I do a lot of business consulting as well. So I work with AI and blockchain companies and help them everything from market development to outreach to translating to other attorneys. Most of the time when we're dealing with other attorneys, they don't necessarily speak AI and blockchain. So I've got to translate the language for them. So that takes up a substantial amount of my time. Then I do the radio show.
Yeah.
And then I have 3 daughters. So
Oh, wow.
they're 14, 11, and 8. So that takes up a lot of my time as
Yeah. How'd you get your knowledge on AI and crypto?
I'm just a very curious person. And so I started getting curious about it, started learning about it
About how long ago?
during the pandemic, actually.
Okay.
We were all sitting at home. We all had a lot of free time. And I was interested in learning more about it. And so I started down the crypto journey before the AI journey. It was really when we started doing the radio show 2 years later that I started really seeing the impact that artificial intelligence was going to have on everything. And so I decided that I wanted to learn as much about it as I could to prepare myself for the future of what is to come.
So crypto came first and then the AI.
Yeah, for me, it
I'm
did.
learning.
That was
Yeah.
just my personal journey. Yeah.
How long have both been in fruition? Like AI is really how old?
So, I mean, if you want to go back to the basics, AI is 40 years old. I mean, we've had versions of it. It's just been over the past several years when we've seen it start to advance at a rapid pace. And then crypto, people take it back to the start of Bitcoin around 2013. And that the idea of blockchain technology is what powers cryptocurrencies, right? It's this blockchain is a ledger that is unchangeable, right? So when we put data in there, the data always stays the same. And we add a new page to it. That's the chain to the block. And so what you see is this type of system allows for the ability to incentivize other people to participate in decentralized systems. So let me give you an example. When you go to the gas station and you pay for your gas, you put in your Visa, right? It does a process to determine if you have money on that card to be able to buy gas, right?
Right.
And that's Visa doing the work. They're contacting your bank. They're going back and forth. And because of that, they're going to take 3.5%. By using decentralized processes through the blockchain, you can take that down to probably 1/100th of a cost, sometimes less than that, because you're getting a monopoly out of the middle of the way. It doesn't actually cost that much. Visa's profit margin is over 50%, right? But the problem is we don't have any other options, right? Visa and MasterCard control over 80% of the market, and they're basically the same entity, you know. So to be able to have an alternative form of payment where we can trust one another. The biggest problem before the blockchain was solving the ability of trust. How do I trust a random person I don't know to do what they say they're going to do? And the blockchain helps us solve that problem.
Because everything's on the table. You
That's
see
right.
every transaction.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything's transparent. So there's a big push right now to have, President Trump has said that he's going to create a Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, right? It's kind of the joke, the Elon joke there. But he's put Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in charge of it. And one of the things they're talking about is putting the government's budgets on the blockchain. And that would give us transparency like we've never had before.
Yeah.
From government, at least.
That's huge.
Yeah, I think it'd be a real big win if they're able to pull that off.
With the election and Trump being president-elect, what impact do you think that'll have on AI and the progress?
Well, I think it's going to be like jet fuel in a jet, right? So we've got the example I use sometimes is you can have the best jet in the world, right? You can have the fanciest jet sitting on the runway. If you don't have fuel for that jet, it's not going anywhere. And regulations stifle fueling your jet. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a decrease in regulations. That's going to allow for more fuel into the ecosystem. So AI is going to continue to expand, but you're also going to see really pro-growth in crypto because the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, has been really anti-crypto over the past 4 years. They've sued a number of companies, and with this change in administration, you're going to see a complete 180 on that. You're going to see a pro-crypto administration rather than an anti-crypto. So that and the ability for people to feel comfortable and confident is going to grow the market. Like we just saw where Bitcoin ETFs were approved recently, right? And so now people who traditionally were nervous about having exposure to Bitcoin or didn't know how to buy it can now just do it through their normal broker, through their retirement account.
Yeah.
And then recently also Bitcoin options were approved. So now people can gamble on, let's call it what it is, gamble on whether or not they think, Bitcoin is going to succeed or not through options. And all that drives more investment into the ecosystem.
Yeah. Did the SEC approve
They did. The options just went live yesterday.
Wow. So the SEC is against crypto because that's really their direct competitor?
I think it's because two things. One, they're probably largely funded by traditional Visa, MasterCard payment systems. And two, I don't think they understand it. And I don't think they've taken the time to understand the technology. And that's all this is it's just a type of technology. Like any other technology, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. But it doesn't mean we don't embrace the technology.
Do you think everyone should invest in crypto?
I think everybody needs to make their own decisions. I don't tell people what to do. You like what you like. I mean, crypto makes sense for me. I think it makes sense for a lot of people, but I don't like telling people what they should do with their money.
Were you into the S&P and stock before you got into crypto?
I was, yeah, and I decided just to move all of my traditional investment in the stock market over to crypto instead.
What was the biggest indicator that led you to do that?
I think the biggest part for me was getting to talk to CEOs of these crypto companies, getting to learn the people behind it, getting to learn what their vision was, and it became more relational, like we talked about, than Johnson and Johnson or Procter and Gamble or the other kind of big cap stocks. But that's the same thing. That's not for everybody, right? I mean, people need to do what they feel comfortable with, and some people just feel comfortable in the stock market and put their money in their 401k every month and let it run through a mutual fund. And I'm not here to tell people that's the wrong answer for them. Whatever they like is what they like.
Yeah. And you came in contact with these CEOs through Beyond the Blockchain?
I did, yeah. So I started just reaching out to them on X, and I met a few at conferences. And so once we got a couple on the show, it gets easier because then you can send them previous episodes of other CEOs who've been on the show,
Right.
and it gives them more confidence to come join us.
Who was your favorite CEO or favorite crypto company you had on?
That's a great question. I think my favorite is Ari Seidman. He is the CEO of a company called Hivemapper, and they're a direct competitor to Google Maps.
Yeah.
Decentralized mapping.
Yeah, Google and Apple have 92% of the market share for digital maps.
Yeah, that's probably about right. It's pretty wild.
How's the crypto company competing with that?
So what they do is they offer the ability to map in a decentralized fashion, meaning any random person can buy one of their dash cams. You install it in your car, just stick it to your windshield, and it maps as you drive. And it gives us the ability to map places that Google and Apple don't traditionally get to. If you live in Manhattan, your Google map is probably fairly updated. If you live in a rural community, it's probably not very updated.
What updates
As
Google
in,
and Apple Maps? Is it satellite?
No, it's their own vehicles. So
Okay.
Google has their own vehicles that drive around with a big bulb on top of the hood, on the roof. And so in this decentralized fashion, everybody can map, right? And so now what we're seeing is fleets. Like in a perfect world, a city like Mobile, where we're sitting today, would outfit their garbage trucks with these Hive mappers, and they only cost like $700 each. They're not crazy expensive, but they would outfit their garbage trucks because the garbage trucks go everywhere, right? And so every 7 days, you would have a completely updated map of your city just by doing that, and you'd be able to rely on the map to be accurate, because that's a big part of this is the accuracy of the maps. If you have a map that hasn't been updated in 6 years, there's a lot that changes in that amount of time.
So how is it a crypto company if they have a full-on service? When I think crypto, I think
So those are the best crypto companies,
Yeah.
the ones that provide a service. So what they do is they incentivize you. You get paid to participate by doing the mapping in a cryptocurrency called Honey. So you're actually getting paid crypto in order to help them with the mapping. So the blockchain allows us, and crypto allows us to incentivize large numbers of people to do activity in ways that traditionally you could not.
Is the pay the same if I'm driving on, let's say a Mobile reference, if I'm driving on airport or if I'm driving all the way in rural West Mobile?
So they actually have bounties on different parts of the world that need to be mapped. And so the pay is different based on how long it's been since that particular street was mapped. But you get paid regardless, even if you're updating a map that's been previously mapped. But in a little under 2 years, they've mapped over 30% of the world's roads.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Why'd they choose Honey? Is that their crypto or?
Yeah, that's their crypto.
Okay.
It's just what they call it because Hivemapper, bees, honey.
Yeah.
You know.
I gotta hit the mouse pad to get the computer back on.
It's fine.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We need our logo.
Yeah, man.
So, I mean, I think that's incredible. I wasn't really familiar that cryptos are services as well, but it's definitely more validity to buy behind.
Those are the ones I like the most. I like utility-based companies,
Yeah.
and a lot of them fall into this category we call DePIN, which is capital D, little e, capital P, capital I, capital N, and it stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks.
Mm-hmm.
How do we build physical infrastructure networks using a decentralized model that doesn't rely on a single source of failure, that rewards the people who are participating in building out the infrastructure?
It's big time stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So, Trump is a fan of crypto?
He is. Yeah, I mean, he's very pro crypto. He just, his Secretary of Commerce that he just announced is very pro crypto and has hundreds of millions of dollars invested in Bitcoin. There's talk that Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO of Coinbase, is going to be a part of the administration.
Wow.
Obviously, Elon has become one of his very close confidants. Elon's very pro crypto. So is RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has said that he's put most of his net worth into Bitcoin.
It's a good incentive for people like me that are still looking between stock and crypto.
Right. Like I said, there's no one size fits all answer.
Exactly.
People have to just figure it out for themselves.
How similar is a stock analysis to a crypto analysis?
For me, it's very similar because what I'm doing is trying to understand the underlying fundamentals, right? And so what you want to do, well, not what you want to do. What I do when I'm trying to analyze a crypto is the first thing I do is I go to the white paper. Every crypto has a white paper. That's basically their thesis on what they are trying to accomplish.
What is a example of a thesis?
Well, like Hive Mappers would be, we're going to compete against Google Maps to transform mapping to make it decentralized, to give people real-time updates and maps that are reliable, that don't have a single point of failure. Okay, so that's kind of the thesis there. There's a company called Dimo, D-I-M-O, and their basic goal is to take all of your car's data and become the car data center of the universe, right?
On the mechanical side?
From the mechanical, yeah. And so they do that. And there's one called Helium Mobile, and they are a decentralized mobile carrier, so phones. And you can set up a hotspot in your business, your dorm, wherever. And people who are using Helium Mobile will use your service, but also 5 of the major carriers now will offload their data onto your system as well. So if there's overflow, what they do is they offload into these Helium hotspots, and that takes pressure off of the big towers, and you get paid for all the data that comes through your particular hotspot. So why does that work? Because you get paid a cryptocurrency to incentivize you to participate in this network, and it's decentralized, meaning it's owned by millions of people. It's not owned by just one telecom company. And the people power the network. And so that's one that I like as well because it's got utility, right? Everybody's got a cell phone.
Yeah.
Everybody's familiar with not having a good signal or, being in a large crowd and having no signal. So being able to offload cell coverage can make a big difference, I think.
Certainly. What's your opinion on Starlink?
Oh, I love Starlink. I think it's brilliant. I think that emergency management services should be investing in Starlink right now. Let's say, we're in Mobile. If we have a hurricane and it knocks out communications, Alabama's Emergency Management Authority should be able to come in and set up Starlink immediately and restore connectivity. Because connectivity is one of the most important parts of our daily lives now.
It is.
There's no reason to have to wait until after you have an incident. Go ahead and invest in Starlink now. They're only $300 each. It's not like we spend money on crazier things in government.
We do. What's the radius that a Starlink gives you?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how far out you can get the coverage. We would have to look that up. I don't like to make things up if I don't know the answer.
That's nice.
I found it's a lot better just to tell somebody I don't know, but we can look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up after.
There we go.
In the financial sector, are financial advisors and people of that nature, are they recommending crypto? Do you know of anyone doing that?
It until very recently they weren't allowed to, but that was changing with the addition of ETFs and now options. But still, that's only Bitcoin. That's not all the depth and breadth of crypto. So I would say most financial advisors are not advising people on crypto.
Yeah.
One, they don't know it. They haven't studied it. They're so busy studying what they are already doing. Adding a whole new element to that sometimes can be hard. But I would say probably not.
Do you think a industry will emerge of just crypto advisors?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're starting to see that already.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of what I do. But like I said, I don't ever tell people how to invest their money. I just educate them on the different cryptos, what they do, why I like them, why I think they matter. And then it's kind of what we're trained to do as an attorney, right? It's like I don't get to tell my client what decision to make. I can advise them on the risk of each decision and the upside of each decision. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. And then I have to go out there and defend their decision to the best of my ability. And I feel the same way with crypto.
How many different cryptos are you in?
I'm only in a handful. I try and keep. I dabble in some sometimes, but for the most part, I'm in Bitcoin and HiveMapper and Helium and Hedera, which is a underlying decentralized system that helps for decentralized applications. And I dabble in some other one. There's one called artificial superintelligence that I like. It's an AI blockchain hybrid. So that one's pretty interesting. But most of my position is in Bitcoin.
Gotcha. There's a quote from Warren Buffett, and it's like, if you can only buy 7 stocks in your whole life, he only does stock, but if you only buy 7, whatever, cryptos or stocks, use that wisely, because then it just makes you run an analysis even harder on the 7.
Well, and Warren Buffett is really smart at saying he doesn't invest in anything he doesn't understand, right? And so he just sticks to what he knows. And Warren Buffett also says that people who are diversified, it means they don't believe in what they're investing in, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, he's against broad diversification. He's in favor of know what you know, invest in what you know, and load up on those positions. Which right now he's full of cash. He's just got cash sitting on the sideline, which is interesting.
He's thinking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about jobs that'll be impacted by AI.
Well, I think every industry is going to be impacted by AI in some capacity or the other. The first that are going to go away are research style positions, whether that's paralegals in a law firm, whether that's people who are doing research for financial advisors, people who are anywhere where I'm trying to acquire data or information. Because now it's we thought that Google had changed that, right? Like, oh, I can Google it and it'll just come up. Well, now you just put it in the AI and it'll actually give you the answers.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to go searching for them.
And Google's using a lot of AI results.
Yeah, that's right. And what they're starting to do now, you have Apple Intelligence. Apple has embedded ChatGPT into a lot of their operating system. So you're going to see this kind of merge there, that it's happening in the background and you don't even realize it's happening. And that's where we ultimately win, when the user interface is so good for both AI and crypto that you don't even realize that AI and crypto are helping you operate, right? It just feels like a normal part of your life.
Yeah.
That's where we ultimately win.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see a lot of manufacturing jobs. We saw where the Figure 1 robot was on the line for BMW already, working the assembly line. I think manual labor jobs, things that are dangerous, crane operating. I think eventually we're going to have autonomous robots that do firefighting. And by eventually, I mean like 5 years from now. I don't think it's that far away. It's you're not going to have somebody stocking the shelves. You're going to have a robot stocking the shelves. You're not going to have taxi drivers or Uber drivers cars are going to be autonomous, like Waymo. So autonomous driving,
I've
meaning,
seen one of those Waymos.
yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I was so taken back when
You're
I
like,
saw
where's
it.
the human?
Right.
So the interesting thing about that is autonomous driving is only approved in a couple of states right now. But the Trump administration has said they're going to pass a federal autonomous driving law, making autonomous driving legal on all federal roadways.
I did see that.
Which would allow, the benefit there is autonomous 18-wheelers,
Right.
right? We can't have a world where the 18-wheeler can drive from California to Nevada, but then can't go into Arizona and has to go up and around. I mean, that's just not going to work. So the federal government can't tell states what to do exactly, but they can federalize the roadways. So that would mean all interstates would be available for autonomous driving.
Are the vehicles ready to be fully autonomous? I know Tesla's got trucks they're working on.
Yeah, Tesla's got trucks. I can't remember which company it was. One of the major.
Is it Peterbilt?
No, it was either Coke or Pepsi, or one of the large beverage distributors has invested in a fleet of autonomous
Wow.
trucks from Tesla. But like I said, I can't recall exactly which one it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's coming. I mean, the full self-driving is already here for the Teslas, right? I mean, I've got plenty of friends that don't drive their car in it ever. They just sit in the front seat and the car takes them where they want to go. Tesla's also got it to where you can be parked. Let's say you're at the grocery store and you're parked at the end of the parking lot. You can summon your car and it will drive up to the front door of the grocery store and come pick you up.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, just all those sci-fi movies we watched as kids and when we were younger, everything is coming true.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can dream it, you can do it, and now is the doing time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an interesting world.
It is. When, AI, like, what do you think are the biggest challenges AI still needs to overcome?
I think we've got some ethical implications we've got to think through.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the whole world isn't going to participate in that. The Chinese are probably not as concerned about ethical AI as we are, but there's got to be a world where we understand that human autonomy is different than artificial intelligence. And my friend Sierra Catalina always says, we can't gender them, we can't humanize them more than their looks. We have to understand that that's a robot and that it's not a human. And that's going to be really hard as we start to move into these Westworld style autonomous robots that are coming, right? So I think we've got some ethical implications there. How do we treat our robots? Or should we be kind to our robots? Are we allowed to be mean to the robots? When the robots start to get sentience, does the robot have rights? These are all questions that we're going to have to examine over the next even 10 years.
One thing you told me a while back that I never heard before is like the robots are keeping score. So when you're using ChatGPT, say thank you, say please.
Yeah.
I think
It's tracking everything you do.
Yeah.
And if you want, it's like anything else. If you want good results, being kind to people gets you a lot further than being mean, right? There's the old expression, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very big proponent on kindness. I tell my children, I can't make you the smartest in the room. I can't make you the tallest in the room, but I can make you the kindest in the room. That's completely under our own control.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Can we talk about your Shark Tank experience?
Sure.
Well, how was that?
I had a wonderful time on Shark Tank. I learned some lessons while I was there. I learned that you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Damon Johns taught me that. Mark Cuban taught me you have to have unrelenting belief in what you're doing. You have to dream big. You have to have these big ideas. Kevin O'Leary taught me, he offered me half of a deal. He taught me that sometimes people will be half in on your idea, but they need somebody else to close it out, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Herjavec taught me that timing is everything, right? He said, well, I'm glad you're here. I like the product, but I just think you're here too early. And my answer to him was, well, I'm here on the day you told me to be. You told me what day to come back, and I'll be back. And
what was your product?
I had a company called Tie Try, and it was an online necktie rental service. So a lot of people have heard of Rent the Runway, which is for female, it's for dresses and women's apparel. And ours was for neckties. The way we started it was I was friends with a bunch of attorneys. We all had, dozens of ties in our closet, and we were always wearing the same 4 or 5. It's just kind of you get into a routine and a rotation. And so we thought maybe other guys are like that as well. So we said, instead of people having to invest in dozens of ties, what if they could just rent ties? Like the way that Netflix used to send you DVDs in the mail. That's what we used to do. You may not even remember Netflix used to send you DVDs. But,
I remember Redbox.
Yeah. All right. So Netflix, before it was all streaming, you would get a couple DVDs at a time. You would choose what you want. They'd send them to you. Then once you watched them, you would send them back, and you had a queue. So you had a list of what you wanted them to send you next time. So we did that with men's neckties. We had them all on the website. You would have a queue. You could pick the level of service you want. Do you want 2 ties at a time, 3, 4, up to 5? And there was tiered pricing. And so folks would just come and they'd choose the ties they wanted. We'd send them to them. They'd wear them, send them back to us. We created a sanitization process so that we could ensure that there was no germs on the ties before we sent them back out. We worked with a professor in textiles to develop that. And anyway, it was just a really interesting experience. And, you got to remember this was 2012. So the world was a lot different 12 years ago. A lot more men were very formal. Nobody would ever come on a podcast in a sweatshirt, back then. Podcasting was just getting started. But it was just a lot different. So what we found, 2 things that were really interesting was back to relationships, right? A lot of our subscribers knew each other. We had very good word of mouth marketing. We had a lot of people who are on network TV, right? They're on their local TV station. They're a news anchor or a weatherman, and they're wearing a tie every night. They want to wear something different. They don't make a ton of money while they're still trying to move up. So it was a perfect fit for them. And then we also found that a large percentage of our subscribers were women who were picking out ties for the men in their life and, running the account themselves. And just, they'd write in sometimes and say, we've got this wedding coming up. I'm wearing this type of dress. Do you have this type of tie? And our customer service would go through and help them find the right tie for the right occasion type thing. So it was an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm. So when you got half of a deal, what does that mean?
So Kevin O'Leary offered us 50% of what we were asking for if we could get another shark to come in for the other 50%. And the rule on Shark Tank is it's all or nothing. You can't get partially funded. So if we couldn't get a second shark on board, we were going to get nothing. And that's eventually what happened. Damon John said we weren't passionate enough about the product, which was true. We thought we had a good idea, but it wasn't. We weren't passionate about it. We just thought we had a good idea. Mark Cuban said that we weren't thinking big enough because he said, what are you going to do when we get to $20 million in revenue? We're just crushing it, Scott. And I paused for what I didn't think was that long. And before I could respond, he said, I'm out. He said, I don't want somebody that's going to be happy with $20 million in revenue. I'm looking for somebody that wants $200 million in revenue. That was fair. Like I said, Kevin O'Leary was in if we can get another shark on board. Barbara Corcoran said it was a terrible idea and that we should quit now before we bankrupted our families, which shows you that sometimes people just aren't going to believe, and that's okay. And then, like I said, Robert Herjavec said we were too early. So timing is so important in deals like this. But through the airing of the show, we got hundreds of new subscribers. We grew the business substantially, and we sold it to a group out of Manhattan several months later. So
nice.
Yeah, ended up, getting the same goal we wanted anyway.
Yeah. How long was the start to sell?
13 months.
Dang.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Dang.
Doesn't always happen that way.
How does that 13-month salary compare to the money you're making now with everything?
It was a good business. We sold it early, but we knew what we were doing. We knew we were selling it early because the amount of money we would need to invest to continue to grow It would cost us about, $250 per subscriber to be able to have enough ties for them, right? Because you got to have enough inventory. Every time you add a subscriber, you got to add more inventory. And you got to have diversity, and you got to have depth, right? You don't want just one tie of one. Like if you put a picture on the website, you don't want just one of those because that thing's going to be forever out of stock. People don't want that. So you need depth. You need a bench. You need 15 of that same exact tie. And that costs a lot of money. So we sold the company early, but we did so knowing that we also weren't going to have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue to add inventory.
Right.
And they ended up running that company for about another 7 or 8 years. And then the pandemic got a hold of them. And
Dang.
I think they shut down after that.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was a wild story.
What's the process like on applying to come on Shark Tank?
So you submit a paper application, and if you get past that round, then you do a 3-minute unedited video. And if you get past that round, you do a phone call with casting. If you get past that, they fly you out to LA, and you do basically a dry run in front of the producers. If you pass that, you get to pitch to the Sharks. And if you make good enough TV, they'll air your episode. So there's some people that do all of that, make it all the way to the Sharks, pitch the Sharks, and it still doesn't make TV.
Wow.
Just because it wasn't compelling enough for them to justify putting it on air.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty interesting process.
Is that the only product you've applied to go on Shark Tank for?
It is, yeah. That's the only one.
Okay. My last question is, how could young people get ahead in AI?
I think just being curious. I think being curious in life, just in general, is going to help people get ahead. But I would recommend, if you don't have an account on X, get on X. That's where most of the information about AI is being filtered the fastest. Traditional websites aren't moving very fast in this. I mean, I can't keep up with everything that's going on in AI every day, and that's my job. There's so much going on that no one can keep up with all of it. But if you want to learn, get on X, start following accounts that are AI related, that are sharing AI information, and cultivate your feed, right? It's all about the algorithm. When people tell me like, and not just X, maybe get on TikTok and do it as well, but cultivate your algorithm. When people tell me, oh, TikTok is just, teenage girls dancing or whatever, I'm like, bro, that's your algorithm. You're telling me what you watch when you tell me that. That's not what my feed looks like. So there's information out there, and just find people that you find interesting that are conveying the information in ways that make it enjoyable for you to learn about. If it's terrible for you to learn about, then you're not going to stick with it, right? So just find ways to be curious and follow along and enjoy the journey, and know that it's going to happen very rapidly, a lot sooner than most people realize.
A lot sooner than most people realize. That's the
Absolutely
interesting, cool, scary part.
It's all of the above.
Yeah.
It's some days I feel really optimistic about the future, and some days I have existential dread. Just depends on what I'm reading.
What law practice were you involved in before you moved to? Is it AI? Is that your?
Yeah, primarily AI, robotics, and crypto.
Yeah.
Just typical corporate work.
Okay.
Helping businesses.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on, Scott.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
It was a pleasure. Yeah.
I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this, or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.